The Spirit of Nandi, a Zulu folktale. Part 1. The Wicked Stepmother. Long ago, in a quiet Zulu village nestled at the foot of the Drakensberg Mountains, there lived a young girl named Nandi. She was known for her beauty, kindness, and grace. Her father, Sibusiso, adored her deeply. However, tragedy struck when Nandi's mother fell ill and passed away. Stricken with grief, Sibusiso remarried a woman named NOMVULA, a widow from a neighboring village. NOMVULA was beautiful but cruel, with a heart as cold as the winter wind. She had a daughter of her own, Zanele, who shared her mother's spiteful nature. The villagers whispered about NOMVULA's dark past, but Sibusiso, blinded by his need for companionship, ignored the warnings. At first, NOMVULA feigned kindness toward Nandi, but once Sibusiso left for work in the fields, her true nature surfaced. She resented Nandi's beauty and charm, fearing that she would outshine Zanele. NOMVULA made Nandi sleep on the cold ground, wear tattered clothes, and eat scraps, while Zanele dined on the finest meals. The forbidden task. One fateful day, Sibusiso announced he had to leave the village for several weeks to trade goods in a distant town. Before he left, he made NOMVULA promise to take good care of Nandi. The moment he was out of sight, NOMVULA's cruelty escalated. NOMVULA gave Nandi impossible tasks to complete. One day, she demanded Nandi fetch water from a spring deep in the forest. The villagers knew this spring was sacred, guarded by ancient spirits, and feared by all. But NOMVULA did not care. She hoped Nandi would never return. As Nandi reached the spring, a chill crept over her. The wind whispered her name, and the leaves rustled ominously. Just as she was about to fill her clay pot, a shadowy figure appeared before her. It was an old woman with piercing eyes and a voice like thunder. "Child, why do you disturb the sacred spring?" the woman asked. Nandi, trembling, explained her stepmother's demands. The old woman softened and gave Nandi a small bead, warning her, "This bead will protect you from harm, but beware, your stepmother's jealousy will only grow stronger." Part 3. The Final Act of Cruelty. When Nandi returned home unharmed, NOMVULA was furious. She accused Nandi of stealing the bead and cursed her for her supposed cunning. The bead's beauty enraged her further, as it symbolized Nandi's purity and resilience. That night, NOMVULA concocted a sinister plan. She told Nandi to clean the pigsty and feed the pigs, but she locked the door behind her. Nandi realized too late that she was trapped. The pigs, starved for days by NOMVULA, began to grow restless. Despite her pleas for mercy, NOMVULA ignored her cries and left Nandi to the animals. By morning, Nandi was gone, her body torn apart by the pigs. NOMVULA buried the remains in the pigsty and told the villagers that Nandi had run away. Only Zanele knew the truth, but fear of her mother kept her silent. The haunting begins. Sibusiso returned weeks later, heartbroken to hear of Nandi's supposed disappearance. NOMVULA feigned sadness, but Sibusiso noticed her unease. One night, as NOMVULA slept, a chilling wind swept through the hut. She woke to the sound of soft footsteps and a faint, haunting melody, Nandi's favorite lullaby. "NOMVULA," a voice whispered, "you fed me to the pigs, but my spirit lives on." Terrified, NOMVULA sat up, only to see Nandi's ghost standing at the foot of her bed. Her once beautiful face was now scarred, her eyes hollow and glowing with vengeance. "I will haunt you until justice is served," Nandi declared, before vanishing into the shadows. The Curse. From that night on, NOMVULA could not escape Nandi's spirit. The pigs, once docile, became wild and aggressive, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. At night, NOMVULA would hear their squeals echoing with Nandi's voice. Her sleep was plagued by nightmares of being devoured by the very pigs she had starved. Zanele, unable to bear the torment, confessed the truth to Sibusiso. Overcome with rage and grief, he confronted NOMVULA. But before he could exact justice, the village elders intervened, deciding that NOMVULA's punishment should be delivered by the ancestors. NOMVULA's end. The villagers performed a cleansing ritual at the sacred spring, calling upon the spirits to avenge Nandi. As the drums echoed through the night, a great storm arose. NOMVULA, unable to flee, was dragged toward the pigsty by an unseen force. The pigs surrounded her, their eyes glowing like embers. In her final moments, NOMVULA screamed for mercy, but the villagers turned away. By morning, she was gone, her body never to be found. The pigs were mysteriously calm, as if the spirit of Nandi had claimed her vengeance. The legacy of Nandi. To this day, the villagers say the pigsty remains cursed. Those who pass by at night claim to hear Nandi's lullaby carried on the wind. The sacred spring has become a place of pilgrimage, where people leave offerings to honor Nandi's spirit. The tale of NOMVULA and Nandi serves as a reminder. Cruelty never goes unpunished, and the spirits of the wronged will always find their justice. With Sibusiso gone, NOMVULA's cruelty intensified. She relished the freedom to torment Nandi without restraint. The girl worked from dawn to dusk, her hands blistered and her feet raw. NOMVULA grew inventive in her punishments, and one day she devised a task so perilous that she believed Nandi would never return. "Nandi," she said with a sly smile, "our homestead lacks fresh water, and only the purest will do. Go to the spring in the deep forest and bring back a full pot, and do not return empty-handed." Nandi hesitated, for she had heard the tales. The spring lay within a shadowy grove, said to be the domain of restless spirits and ancient guardians. Few dared to approach it, and those who did often returned with strange tales, or not at all. But Nandi, fearing her stepmother's wrath, nodded and set off with her clay pot. As she walked deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around her. The air grew colder, and the usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves fell eerily silent. Her heart pounded with each step, but she pressed on, whispering a prayer to her ancestors for protection. Finally, she reached the spring. The water shimmered unnaturally, as though it held the light of 1,000 stars. As Nandi knelt to fill her pot, a sudden gust of wind sent chills down her spine. She froze when she heard a voice, low and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. "Why do you disturb this sacred place, child?" Nandi turned to see an old woman standing before her. The woman's hair was white as snow, and her eyes glowed faintly, as if lit by an inner fire. Her posture was frail, yet her presence exuded immense power. "Forgive me, Gogo," Nandi stammered, bowing her head. "I have come only to fetch water. My stepmother demands it." The old woman studied her for a long moment before speaking. "This spring is guarded by spirits who do not take kindly to intruders. But you are different. Your heart is pure, though it carries great sorrow." She leaned closer, her gaze piercing. "Beware your stepmother's jealousy. It burns brighter than any flame." The old woman reached into a pouch at her waist and pulled out a small glowing bead. It shone with an ethereal light, its surface shifting like liquid. She handed it to Nandi. "Take this," she said. "It will protect you from harm. But remember, the wicked cannot hide forever. Their deeds will find them out." Nandi thanked the woman, placing the bead in her pocket. As she turned to fill her pot, the old woman disappeared, leaving behind only the faint scent of wildflowers. The journey home was no less eerie, but the bead seemed to warm in Nandi's hand, filling her with courage. When she arrived at the homestead, NOMVULA was waiting with a scowl. "You dare to return?" NOMVULA sneered. Her eyes fell on the pot of water, and then on the glowing bead in Nandi's hand. Her expression darkened. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. "It was given to me by a kind old woman at the spring," Nandi replied. "She said it would protect me." NOMVULA snatched the bead from Nandi's hand, examining it closely. A deep fury bubbled within her as she realized the bead's significance. It was a sign of Nandi's purity and the favor of the ancestors, something NOMVULA and Zanele could never possess. "You insolent girl," NOMVULA hissed. "You think you're special, don't you? This bead will bring you no protection here." She threw the bead onto the ground and stomped on it, but to her horror, it did not break. Instead, it rolled away, glowing brighter than ever. NOMVULA's anger turned to fear, though she quickly masked it with a cruel smirk. "Go to bed," she barked. "Tomorrow you will learn your place." Nandi obeyed, clutching the bead to her chest. That night, she dreamed of the old woman and the spring, hearing her warning echo once more. "Beware your stepmother's jealousy. The wicked cannot hide forever." Little did Nandi know, her stepmother's jealousy was about to push her to commit an unforgivable act.